Hello everybody, welcome back to the Micah's Lawn Maintenance YouTube channel. Today we're going to be diving into some of the projects that I picked up. If you watched the last video, you'll see what projects I'm talking about. If not, I recommend you go watch that video, or you can just stick around and find out. Alright folks, so today's project is this, to the best of my knowledge, 2014 Turf Tracer X Series. It is a 60-inch. Again, if you watched my previous video, you saw that I got this in a lot with another Turf Tracer and a trailer and a Laser Z. That Laser Z, all I did to it was pressure wash it and sell it. I got $9.50 out of it, which I am very pleased with because it didn't even have an engine. This mower, like I said, I believe it's a 2014, and the main issue with it is obviously you can see the engine's missing here, and that is for a reason. I did just take that out off camera, but the engine, I'm going to see if I can play a clip up here. The engine it starts on full choke and it barely runs. It's got an awful knocking to it. It blows white smoke everywhere. And cylinder number 1, I believe, has a grand total of 0 psi of compression. The other one has a little over 100. So I'm pretty sure it's going to need a rebuild. But today I'm just going to get into tearing it down and seeing the carnage within. So stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so here's the motor we're going to be working on today, and right now I'm just going to get started. I already took off this top shroud here that you can see, and I don't know how well you can see that down there. Pardon the tripod getting in the way, but you can see the oil drain that I've started for it. So right now I'm just going to go ahead, quickly pop all of these bolts holding the shroud on here. And the biggest thing with disassembling an engine like this is you need organization. So right now I'm going to grab this little parts tray here that I'm going to keep parts in, and then I also have a couple of ammo cans that I bought from Harbor Freight here that I'm going to be putting some of the larger parts in, just so I can kind of keep track of everything, know that all of it goes to this project. So I got that oil dipstick bolt off, then I'm just going to kind of go around the whole engine shroud here. And just kind of loosen them. Then you can get them by hand most of the way. I'm going to lump all of these bolts together because, again, I'm trying to keep stuff organized here just to make sure I can keep track of everything. And apologies if you can't see what I'm working on over here. I just don't have the energy to change the camera angle every 2 seconds. And I believe this should be the last one here. I guess when I try and take the shroud off, we'll find out. Survey says that's it. I do, real quick, before I do that, I do need to pop this fuel pump off on the side here. I don't know if you can see that from your angle. There you go, you should be able to see that now. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the tool and get that popped off real quick. This is just a really cheap Chinese drill. It came in a even cheaper tool set. I really like using it for this type of stuff, just little engine teardowns and that sort of thing, because it really doesn't have too much torque to it, so you can't really overstrip things with it, and it's really, really nice just as a little tool to help tear stuff down, so you don't have to do everything by hand. See, it's not the fastest thing, but I mean, it still gets the job done here. So we're gonna leave that fuel pump just dangling there, and we will rip our shroud off. Let me go ahead and set this to the side over in the corner there. So now we can see really what we're working with here. And I don't know if you can hear that, but I can already hear some pieces clunking around in there. I already hear some pieces clunking around in the engine bay. So right now I'm going to get started on stripping the accessories like the starter, just so we have better access. All right, so these main bolts here on the starter, on the top of the starter, these are going to be the ones that you want to take off. And these are going to be a 12 millimeter. Let's see, let's crank up the clutch on this. See, even then, this thing, it's just not super powerful. That's why I like using it for this stuff. There we go. Just get those kind of broken loose there. We can pop them the rest of the way out. With this, go ahead and put those bolts where they need to go. And this starter, I believe, is just kind of rusted in there. Yeah, so this starter, even though it's going to be really hard to get out, it really just needs some love taps with the hammer. It's just the 1 bolt, 2 bolt. There's no other bolts holding it in. You just gotta kind of and it pops right out. So it's gonna not feel quite right to do that, but a lot of these engines, this one is, what do I say, 10 years old, has 1,200 hours on it. It's been sitting for 5 years. So, I mean, everything's just kind of got a bit of a rust and corrosion coating on it. It's not going to want to play nicely, especially stuff that's been exposed to the elements. Like you can see, I don't know how well you can see that, but the top of the starter there's just a lot of corrosion. It's going to be really hard. Well, it's going to be really easy for that to just form a bond with the bottom of the little starter ring here. So we are going to, again, set that to the side, and let's see, what do I want to remove next? All right, next up on our list for disassembly today is going to be this carburetor. So you are going to need mainly a lot of wrenches that are 10 millimeter in size. So open-end wrench, if you have 10 millimeter sockets still laying around, if you haven't lost them all like me, that would be good to have. But lots of 10 millimeter. Some of these you can just break loose and kind of run off by hand. I'm going to throw all the carburetor and intake assembly pieces into an ammo can just to make sure that they're all organized here. And like you see, a lot of this is coming off fairly easily. On the last mower I had, if you watched my video, the 52 Turf Tracer, this also had the FX691v Kawi. That carburetor, those bolts did not want to play very nicely, but this one is doing surprisingly well considering it's been sitting for 5 years, honestly. I'm pretty impressed with it so far. I was amazed I was able to get it to run at all, honestly. But we're just getting these big bolts out of here. These are quite long. And I'm not gonna take the muffler off for now because it's kind of at the very bottom there. And once I get to flipping the engine over and doing all that, then I'll probably take it off. But for now, it's not that much of a pain in my butt. So I'm going to leave it. Make sure we undo that little bit there. Going to get this tiny little nut that's down here. And this is a whole lot easier if you have a 10mm socket as well, but I have misplaced mine and I'm too lazy to go look for them, so I'm doing all of it with a ratcheting combination wrench, which works just fine, but like I said, it would be better with a socket as well. I'm gonna go ahead and move the linkage pieces to the side here. I'll come back for that later, but for now I just want to get this little bit off. I'm going to grab some needle nose pliers here. You can pull this hose off. I believe it's a breather hose. Kind of put some back pressure on this, and that should just pop right out there. I don't believe that was supposed to come out with it. No, I don't think it was. But just pop that right back in there. And this is our carburetor piece. So what you want to do to get the rest of this, I guess we're not pulling off the rest of this carburetor assembly. We're going to be pulling off the whole intake here, so I'm going to try to do it without messing with some of those base screws there. So again, just a 10mm. You're pulling off these bolts here that are holding the intake in. Real simple. Excuse the backup camera noise. I have a package coming for the other Turf Tracer right there. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a fuel pump coming for that one. I'm going to go ahead and get the other bolt off on this side. Just real quick, get that by hand. And then we do have, you're not going to be able to see it on camera, but you do have two other bolts holding the intake in right below the first set. So you're going to need to take those off as well. There's one. And again, really all you need the wrench for is just cracking it open. These bolts ideally will come out without too much fuss. Like I said, the other Kawasaki I was working on with similar hours was putting up a little bit more of a fight than this one is, but this one seems to be going fairly well at the moment. I'm just gonna try to rock this. There we go. See that? Just broke loose of the gaskets there. So I'm going to get the linkages here all disconnected from the carburetor. Just pop that off real quick, real easy. And then just kind of slide this puppy out. There it is. That's your carburetor assembly. All gone here. I'm just going to kind of rest that over there. I will be taking apart that carburetor, likely to rebuild it. You can see we got some gasket material left over there. That can stay for now. It will be coming off later. We're going to go ahead and get rid of these other shrouds here. Again, it's just more 10mm bolts. If you ever have doubt as to what size it is, just assume it's a 10mm, because that's always the ones you use. It's always the size you'll lose. So it's a good assumption. Back here, you. All right, so we got those two bolts off. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to get, apologies for my arm being in the way, but we're going to get this bolt off here, which is already loose for some reason, but whatever. Go ahead and rip that off. There it is. Move that spark plug connector out the way. Alright, well that one doesn't want to come off, so for now we're just going to leave it to the side. We're going to go ahead and do this side here. We're going to go ahead and take all of these bolts off. There's actually 3 on this side, which is different from the other side just being 1. But we're going to go ahead and rip those off real quick. Make sure you're not losing these bolts. They will be quite important later when you go to reassemble it. Well, there goes that piece. This, again, we'll just put it to the side for now. I can rewatch this video to know how it goes. If you want to record yourself doing it, just to remember where everything went, maybe not a bad idea. Partially the reason I'm doing this. Also to get a video out of it, but you know, whatever. Alright, so we got the last bolt off for this shroud here. So now we should be able to just, yep, pop that right off. Alright, so I found a 10mm. This one is attached to my 3/8 Milwaukee electric ratchet, which is an awesome little machine. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend one. You can just use it real quick as a regular socket wrench just to break these loose, so you're not putting a whole lot of extra pressure on them. And then just go ahead Alright, so that should be all of them there. They're all out of the threads, they're just kind of resting in their little spots there. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a flat blade or a flathead screwdriver. And you're just going to kind of wedge it in between. This is not the official way to do it. Not the best way, but I'm just going to kind of put the corner of the screwdriver in here in the biggest gap I can find, and then just kind of give it some love taps with a hammer. And there, I don't know if you could see it, but it just split. So we are going to leak some oil there. I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple rags to shove under there so we're not leaking too much. I know it's just leaking on some 2x6s, but I would still rather it be contained more or less. So now that we've kind of broken the seal, I'm going to go ahead, finish breaking it. So we have a lot of oil pooling out there, so that probably means that the engine wasn't fully tipped back when we went to drain it, and that's okay. It's always normal to have a little bit of oil come out here. So I'm gonna go ahead and let some of that oil drip into there. Now this is interesting. I see our first sign of metal. This looks like maybe the retainer clip on a piston, potentially. Not entirely sure, but we do have this little piece of metal. That's our first sign of some carnage. And I was mistaken. This is cylinder 2, by the way, not cylinder 1. I'm going to go ahead and just place this once I get all of the oil out of it here. I'm just going to kind of place it face down and let all of the valve cover bolts rest inside of it so I'm not losing those pieces. All right, now we're going to do the same thing on this side here. So grabbing our ratchet, popping them loose. This side is actually really loose. I'm kind of surprised by. And then, is that all of them? Okay, well, that's all of them. I'm gonna go ahead, pop these all loose here. All right, before we go any further, like the other side, I know it's gonna leak, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab some more rags for that side. All right, so it is day 2 now. I know you can't tell, but the camera died, so this is the second day of me working on it. Yesterday, I believe we left off with getting this cylinder 2 valve cover off. Right now, I'm going to be getting the second one off. So we already have all the bolts undone here. All we need to do is just kind of pry it off like the last one. So we're just gonna kind of get in there. And this one I must have loosened up yesterday because it's coming off real nice. Again, you're gonna have some oil spillage here. Totally normal. If you can, try to get your gasket to come off in one piece. It'll make your life a whole lot easier a little bit later. And there's that. So all of the bolts just fell out of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place this valve cover upside down. I know you guys can't see it, it's off screen, but I just placed it upside down with all the bolts sitting in it, just like I did the other valve cover. So in here, you're not going to be able to see that at all with the GoPro, but in there. Looks totally fine to me. I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary. Push rods don't look bent from where I can see. And then this side, I forgot to say it earlier, but push rods look fine to me. And I didn't find anything except for a little bitty piece of metal, which is a little concerning, but again, I already know there's something wrong with this engine, so whatever. Alright, so now I've got my good light set up here. So we are going to start taking these, what are they called here? The spark plugs out. Now we're going to go ahead and get these spark plugs out. This is a 13/16. And they should be mostly hand tight on there. Oops. Sorry. Should be mostly hand tight on there. All you gotta do is just break them loose with the ratchet, and then you can spin them out by hand. At least you should be able to. And these spark plugs are going to give us a pretty good indication of what we're looking at in the engine. So what we can see here is this is a really oily spark plug. I don't know if you can see that. It's not the worst I've ever seen, but it's not great. Now we'll come over to this side here. Do the same thing. Pop it on. Get it loosened up. And oop. That is oddly tight. Ooh. That doesn't look good. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's electrode is like totally bent. It's really out of whack. So that does not bode very well for the internals of that cylinder. I believe it's cylinder 2 is its designation. Alright, so what we're going to need to do here to get these heads off is we're going to need to get all of these bolts off. But to do that, I know you can't see it, but there are some bolts hiding beneath these valves here. So we're going to need to get those off. I'm just going to check the valve lash real quick by hand. See, that's too tight there. That should be a lot looser. But we'll see what's going on with this engine when we take it apart. Right now we want to just kind of pop this valve apart. So get a 10mm open. Just kind of pop that off there. Alright, so once you get that little nut off, all you got to do here is just pop this little screw out. Again, make sure you're sorting all of this, and your valve will come out as well as your push rod. So what we can see here is that is a nice, very straight push rod. Quite happy with that. We'll see what the bottom one looks like here. We'll repeat the process. Kind of breaking that loose might fight you a little bit, but it should all be well lubricated in here, so it shouldn't fight you too much. And go ahead and rotate this so it's at the top of its cycle there, and just kind of tap it a little bit with the wrench. If it really doesn't want to come out, just give it some baby taps with a hammer. Nothing too hard, but Make sure you're not losing these little washers that are on the bolts. Those are quite important. Another very straight push rod, which I'm pretty surprised about, but I mean, hey, I'll take it. So these head bolts here are going to be size 14, and it looks like my socket doesn't really fit that well in there. Oh, because those don't look like 14s. All right, so your main head bolts here are going to be 14s. I'm just going to use this ratchet to break them loose here. That's broken loose. And then that one up top, we're going to need to get these little valve retainers here off. These up in here are going to be 12mm bolts. So that's off. And then I do not believe we need to get the other one off. So I'm going to go ahead, get this bolt here. They're going to be pretty tight, but it's okay. All right, spare battery to the rescue here. That one's out. That one's out too. Gotta go ahead, pull these head bolts out. There we go. That's it. We're gonna go ahead and take this other rocker retainer out as well, just for the heck of it. All right, so now with our head bolts off, it is time to take off this cylinder head and see the carnage behind. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So here is the cylinder head. See, it's all gouged up. The valve is stuck sideways inside. We see that? Yes. And then set that to the side real quick. If you look at our cylinder, I don't think there's supposed to be a gaping hole there. So, yeah. Let's see, does the connecting rod work? Connecting rod's good, at least. I don't know if the bearings are for the rod, but at least the rod itself was good. Don't have to buy that. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to time lapse this because you guys don't need to watch it again. Maybe I'll just cut it out. We'll see. Alright, so I've got this second cylinder head, all the bolts out of it, all the valves disassembled. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, that's not bad. That's about what I would expect 1200-hour cylinder head to look like. If you look at this one, see the valves are perfectly intact. It's a bit dirty, but valves are intact. And then we will pull this piston up here. Once again, you can see fully intact piston, a little dirty, just some carbon buildup, but totally normal. So I guess next thing is going to be to dig into the crankcase here. So let me get that set up. Now we're gonna get into this crankcase here. We're gonna take a look at the bottom end, see if we can find that rod knock we were talking about earlier. So yeah, these are all going to be, I believe, 12mm bolts. That's correct. Now we just want to make sure that all these are loose here. See, that one just threaded in just a little bit. Want to make sure they're all the way loose, that we didn't forget any. I see one more here. Okay, so that should be all of them. Again, we'll just go around and check, make sure that they all come free by hand, none of them are secretly threaded in, and then we'll try to kind of wiggle it off. It's probably not going to want to come off. So okay, so that looks like it's pretty broke free. At least on this side it is. There we go. See, now that should all come off. There's one piece, you might have to twist it around a little bit to make it play nice. But there we are. There's our crankcase. Alright, so now what I think I'm going to do is, there's a lot of oil in there left still. Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little magnet tool and start fishing out pieces of the cylinder and valves. So see, I already found one. This is a flashlight with a magnetic tip, nice and extendable. You can just put it in, see where you're going, just kind of fish around a little bit, see if you can find anything. Actually, not really finding anything at the moment. Let me try using this end. It's a little bit more powerful magnet. One really nice thing I'm seeing about this this crankcase here, this oil, is that there's really not any metal flaking in it, really. And so far I've only found that one metal shard, which is interesting, because I would think there would be more than that. Let me go fishing by hand, see if I can find any. Oh yeah, there's a few. Getting just these tiny little pieces out is very important. You don't want to be running your engine too much with these little bits of metal in it. Oh, there's another. Where'd it go? I felt one in there. It's there somewhere. There it is. Again, just these really tidy pieces. It's important to get those out. They're really jagged and they will tend to mess up stuff in here. Now my fingers are covered in oil. Kind of digging around the back side of this crankshaft here looking for any, and I'm not seeing it, so I think we're pretty well good here. Look at my fingers now. Alright, so now we're going to get the connecting rods disassembled here. I already broke these bolts loose. The game plan is for now just to take the one cylinder out. I'm probably gonna take a look at the second one. I might take it out and just do rings on it, but the piston itself is fine, so I don't plan to mess with it. Alright, that's one bolt out. Again, make sure you're separating all your bolts in a way that makes sense to you so you can come back to it later. And you can also videotape it like I'm doing. If you don't want to post it, then at least it's good for you to look back and one, be proud of what you accomplished, and two, actually be able to tell what you did so that you can redo it when you're putting the engine back together. Alright, so here's our bearing out of that one. It looks really good actually. I'm not seeing any signs of real scoring or anything. You can't feel any divots, so I'm really happy with that one. Alright, so I've gotten that bad piston out, and I mean everything's actually in like remarkable shape. There's very little scoring on the rocker. Not on the rocker, excuse me, on the connecting rod. What's there is negligible and it's totally fine. Then on the bearing itself, again, totally fine. There's not any scoring on that. And then what's awesome is that this hole here shot right next to it, but it didn't hit the arm at all. So I think it's literally just the piston head here that needs to be replaced on this one. Piston head and rings, obviously. But it looks like this is a good one. I'm going to go ahead and pop the other side out off camera as well. I got the second piston out. This one also looks pretty good. There's no holes in it, which is nice. I definitely think gonna do the rings on this one and maybe just a full rebuild kit on this motor, just so it's worth a nice bit of money. Yeah, this is where I'm going to pause for now, and I'm going to order some parts and hopefully be back with it at some point. So, yep, thanks for watching.